Do you always end up losing in fights? At home or even with others at work or in your community? Today, I will show you St. Joan of Arc's secret weapon that will make you invincible in fights. Now you might ask, was it her sword? Well, not really, but it has something to do with her sword. It is how she used her sword that gives us a clue. So, with my trusted magnifying glass, we are about to uncover a secret most people never realized. One that could change how you face your battles. St. Joan of Arc waged many battles and she confounded experienced generals. But unfortunately, these generals became jealous of her and wanted her out of the army. But the greatest novelty that St. Joan of Arc offered, you could say, to the art of war was not her military prowess. It was a light that emanated from her. It was something contagious in her that made the men around her enthusiastic about winning. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about the origins of her famous sword. Now, upon receiving her armor and horse, St. Joan was offered a sword, but she didn't accept it. She said that God had already prepared a sword for her. She then sent instructions to a certain church. They were to go behind the church to a certain spot and dig. And that's how they found her sword. At first, it was covered in rust. But as the flakes of rust fell off, the sword was revealed to be perfect. Perfect condition. And even during her trial, they tried to accuse her of using that sword as an amulet. And they asked her, "How did you know there was an ancient sword buried in the ground under the rear of the altar of the church of St. Catherine of Febois?" She replied plainly, "I knew the sword was there because my voices told me so. And I sent to ask that it be given to me to carry in the war. It seemed to me that it was not very deep in the ground. The clergy of the church had it dug up, and they polished it, and the rust just fell off very easily from it. It was during this trial that she also mentioned that she had never used her sword to kill anyone." So you might be asking, what did she use the sword for? And I'll tell you, the answer will surprise you. But speaking about surprises, I have another surprise for you. Our consecration to Our Lady will begin soon. There you will find not only the secret of St. Joan of Arc's strength, but the secret of Mary, which will help you enormously to avoid the traps of the devil and even to get along with the people around you. But sometimes fights are inevitable. And this consecration will help you with that also. So click on the link in the description. And with that said, let's get back to the fights of St. Joan. Although St. Joan never used her sword to kill anyone, she actually used her sword to, you see, there were these evil women who would follow the French army from a distance, waiting for them to set up camp, hoping to get some income from them. St. Joan would have nothing of this. She would chase away the women of ill repute, threatening them with her sword. And she did mention in her trial that the sword was great for buffeting and giving blows. Some have reported that she even broke her sword on the back of one of these evil women. The king is said to have gotten annoyed with her for that. He said she should have used a stick. Now, St. Joan's chastity was truly contagious. All temptations would flee at the sight of her. There are many testimonies about how the soldiers didn't even feel like swearing in her presence. Now, this is where her strength emerged. History is full of examples of purity giving strength. An example, let's take Godfrey de Bouillon, one of the greatest knights in the First Crusade. His physical might was legendary. He was said to have cleaved the head of a horse with one single blow. One day, one of his enemies asked him where he got his strength. Was it from his sword? Then, Coiffeur de Bouillon, what did he do? He took one of the swords of his enemy, and sliced the head of a camel off. Then he uttered these famous words, "I am strong because I am chaste." For him, purity wasn't a burden, but a source of power, sharpening both his will and his spirit for the battles ahead. Chastity isn't just a virtue, it is a hidden source of strength, the key to never losing in a fight. For St. Joan, it cut through confusion, turned her heart to God's voice, and gave her a courage that the world couldn't explain. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a direct result of her living a pure life. Chastity isn't just about the body. It is about the heart. Something we often miss in our modern world is that a chaste heart is a free heart, free from the chains of selfish desires, and open to God's mission, free to fight for what is right. This freedom fuels courage, making it possible to stand for purity in a world that mocks it. But when the heart is divided, that's when cowardice takes root. We may want to follow God, yet still cling to the world, and impurity makes us cowards. It is like a slow poison. It chains us to fear, weakens our will, and makes us afraid to suffer. The world makes fun of chastity so much, tells us it's outdated, boring, or even impossible. Acts like that is something weak. But as we are uncovering, it is actually the secret to true strength. And the devil knows this. And that is why he attacks purity the first instant he can. Because if he can steal our chastity, he can then steal our courage. Our chastity should not be just about avoiding sins against the 6th and 9th commandment. It should be contagious, like that of St. Joan of Arc. Now, let's take out my trusted magnifying glass and examine this a little closer. What happens when we fall? When the devil strikes us with an arrow. Maybe it's a temptation, a sin, or even a habit we've been struggling with for many years. Do we retreat like the soldiers did in the Battle of Orleans? Or do we run to pray like St. Joan did? If you've fallen or you're wounded, don't stay down. Get up and brush yourself off. That is where real strength begins. And even more, give yourself completely to our Blessed Mother. If you've been feeling cowardly or fear has been holding you back in any area of your life, consecrating yourself to Mary is the surest and easiest way to break free. Under her banner, you are unstoppable, no matter how many battles you face, especially the battle for true chastity. Don't forget the link to the free consecration in the description. Make the step and just watch and see how everything will begin to change. If we realize that fear controls our actions, it's a sign for us to look deeper. Cowardice often hides a greater struggle, one that starts within us. And if so, it is time for us to examine our conscience. How is my chastity? Is it contagious like that of St. Joan? Or do I let impurity linger around me? I know it's not easy, and that is why we need to turn to Mary for her help. But the good news is that chastity can be restored, and with it, courage is reborn. The more we surrender our hearts to God, the more He fills them with strength. A strength that doesn't come from us, but it comes from him. St. Joan of Arc was struck down by an arrow. But that wasn't the end of the battle. It was the beginning of her greatest victory. Now, in her own words, she tells us, "I rely upon God, my Creator, for everything. I love Him with all my heart." In the next video, we will uncover how God always keeps His promises, but not how we expect. The path to glory always passes through the cross, no matter what. So, hope to see you in the next video. God bless. Salve Maria.